Hello everybody. I thought I would just put the camera on and just start recording because life is never perfect, and so that's what I'm seeing from everybody else say the same thing. Just throw the camera on and see what happens. So that's what I'm doing. I have found this 52 tags handmade challenge. Let me see if I can get it up here so you can see the hashtag. This is slow stitching, and what you're doing is you're making something very small that can be sewn onto the back of a tag like this. So this was tag number 5, and it was called Kisses. So the X's are, you know, XOXO. So there's also an X here. So I designed that one. This one was called A Bevy of Buttons, and this was for this last week. So I'm recording this on February the 9th, and this was this last Friday's. This is Monday, February the 9th, and this was Friday's. And I've already got it done. So because I just found the challenge with this one last week, then I've got to go back and do the other 4 tags that I have not done. So, I have done my research. Tag number 4 is the one that I'm going to work on now on camera. This one was called Fly Stitch. And I'll show you what a fly stitch is here in a minute, or if you already know, or you can Pinterest it or whatever. But I just thought I would do some slow stitching on camera because I love sewing, and I forgot how much I loved it. And so when I found this little challenge, I was like, oh, that would be perfect. It's small enough that it won't be overwhelming. You know, this is small enough you can transport somewhere. So, yeah. Alright, so what am I thinking? The fly stitch, this is the best little example of what the fly stitch looks like. So, it almost looks like a Y. I don't know if you can see that. It looks like a little Y. And my thought process with this was going to be my tag. And I wanted it to look like the sky, and I wanted to do the sunshine, and I wanted it to go from red, orange, this color, and then the yellow color. But I was discovering as I was stitching this, it was making a mess. See how it's pulling all this off? And it was really going to be taken away from the stitch of the sun. So, I just ended this one up kind of looking like a little flower. I'm not even happy with it, but that's the very first time I've ever done the fly stitch. So, I will go back and make revisions to it later. I'm not going to throw this away. I'm wanting to start the Sew for the Soul book. So, I will just keep this for a later time. So, what I have done is cut another piece of fabric that will go on my tag. And I do like this, and I want to incorporate all these different textures. But this is just a piece of fleece. And I think the plain blue will make it to where the sunshine that I'm going to stitch will really pop. We're going to try it and see. So I can't really decide how I'm wanting to do this. I thought about just doing a circular sun with the things radiating out, but then you won't have any edges here. And then I thought, well, maybe I could do a half sun and make it come out through here. I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do like a half sun. Yep. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I need to try to find, I don't have an ink pen up here. Because what I'm wanting to do is draw a half. This is just some thread that I'm wanting to incorporate. I don't know. I think maybe there's going to be too much going on, so I may just save this for later. But if I could trace around that, and that can be my sun, I think we'll be doing much, much better. But I don't have a pen. Let me see if I've got a pen right here. So, if anybody else is watching and you're doing this challenge, I am absolutely loving looking on Instagram at everybody's tags. And everywhere, every media platform is using that same hashtag, 52 handmade. But it's really cool just to look and see what everybody else is doing. Okay, I found a pen. Yay. So, just make sure it writes. Okay. And I apologize about the shakiness of the camera. I got a tripod I ordered offline. And it's really nice because it will grip to any surface. And it makes it really, really, really easy to throw up something to record. But at the same time, it's really flimsy. Really flimsy. That is the most horrible circle, half circle I've ever seen in my life. Okay, that's a little bit better. So I think that will be the main part of our sun. And I'm going to go back and fill that in. I forget what you call that stitch because I'm not done embroidery in a long time. But you kind of see how that looks filled in. That's what I'm planning to do with this circle. But I do want to go ahead and do the fly stitch on the outside first because I don't want to spend all that time filling it in if I'm not going to like this one either. Okay. So I have already got, that one's too short. I have already got some bread here. I want to see if I can get this thing. I can remember sitting sewing with my grandmother when I was little. And I'm not that old. I'm still in my 30s. But I can remember her saying, and she's in her early 80s now, she would say, I can't see to thread the needle. And I was just like, that is just the craziest thing. How can you not see to thread a needle? And I get it. I completely get it. And I'm in my 30s. So, but I got it threaded. Alright, let's see how we're going to do this now. Alright, so the premise of the fly stitch, in case you've never seen it and you're just now watching, I've just learned this stitch myself, so bear with me. But what you want to do is come up. Okay, let me draw this on a piece of paper so that you understand it. If you already know what a fly stitch is, I'm sorry that I'm telling you this, but what you want to do is have your needle come up here, and then you make a stitch to here. And then you hold the thread, and I'll show you how in a minute. And so your thread will be out here, and the needle goes in here, and then back to here again. And then you do a stitch like this. So basically you're making a Y, or I call it a birdie foot. A birdie foot. So we're making a birdie foot. Okay, so I have got this up. Let me move this because I know that thread is going to get caught on buttons. So the lady that's doing this is Brooke, textile artist is what she's called on YouTube. She's left-handed, so if you need a right-handed demonstration, here you go. Okay, so my thread is coming up. I'm going to hold my thread over here out of the way, kind of making that Y look. And then I'm going to go in here where I want for that to be. And then I'm going to come up right there where the two is going to intersect. So if I pull that, and I'm hoping that I'm telling this right, because like I said, this is my my second time doing this stitch. And see, that's not right, because that loop is not supposed to pull through. So I'll have to revise what I just showed you. Okay. So what I did, you see how it makes that look, and then I'm going to bring my thread out over here and down, and now you've got that little Y look to it. Okay, so let's do this again and see if I can tell you right this time. Alright, so the needle comes up here. Okay, you're going to kind of position your thread where your V is going to be pointing. Okay, and then you put your other side over here, and I'm trying to really make this look as good as I can. Okay, so the thread should be over this way is the point. So whenever the thread goes this way, or the needle goes this way, your thread should be under the needle. And then if it's under the needle when you pull it, it won't do what it did for me a minute ago, where it almost just completely went through. So, let me pull this out. See, that's what it was doing. Okay, so now when I pull that, now it made the V, see there? And I don't want to pull it too tight, because if I pull it too tight, it don't give that appearance of a Y or a birdie foot. This is called the fly stitch, but I call it birdie foot. Looks like a little pair of birdie feet, don't it? Look. So cute. Alright. So we've got 2. I'm going to come back up here. And do the same thing again. So my thread is that way. And I'm going to go in here, out there. The thread is under my needle. Pull my thread like so, where it's somewhat the same size as the other ones. That one's too tight, so I'm going to loosen it a little bit. Okay, and then bring that out like so. So now we have 3 birdie feet. Alright, do it again. And what I'm going to do is, once I get around with the red, I'm going to kind of change the position of the fly stitch to go a different direction, and then I will switch to the other orangey color. That's too far out. Yes, 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 I will. And that's going to undo because I didn't do that right. That's the only thing, is in my head I can't, I want to get my thread mixed up. Yeah, there we go. And see, that one's too tight because it's not going to be the same length as the other, so I'm just going to kind of pull it back a little bit. Now, bring that one out there. There we go. I really, really love how these are little, manageable pieces of work, because with 3 kids and being a grad student and homeschooling and special needs child and mamahood and my business, it's just crazy. And what happens is you get so full of life responsibilities, you feel like you don't ever have time to do anything that you want to do. Does that only happen to me? Okay. So I know that this is supposed to be a form of artistic interpretation, but my perfectionism self that I have to argue with is quite displeased over the fact that I did not take a ruler and go out and measure how far out my little fly stitches were, because it doesn't look uniform. But you know what? See, it just bothers me. I'm going to resist the urge. I'm going to resist. Can you guys see that? Like, zoom in a little bit better. That's the thing with all of us. We've all got our own little quirks, don't we? Our own quirkies. Quirky, quirky, quirky. I kind of like my quirks, though. That's what my quirks is, what makes me me. And your quirks is what makes you you. Okay. So, that's what we got. I'm going to finish this one up. That way. I bought a book, which I wish I wouldn't have bought the book after I bought the book, but because there's all kinds of resources online for way cheaper than I bought the book, showing you different stitches that you can do, because I really want to get into this concept of slow stitching with all the decorative stitches. Alright, so that looks pretty good, guys. I like that. Okay, anyway, so I'm anxious to learn all these stitches, and this is really cool because every 4th tag for this challenge, she gives you prompts, and every 4th tag she teaches you a new stitch. So that's what I needed. All right, so we ended here. Now what am I gonna do? I think what I'm gonna do, I don't want for this to end up looking like a sunflower or something, but What am I going to do, y'all? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm wondering now if I just want to switch colors and then just do another stitch where it comes out. I think that's what I'm going to do. Kind of trace that stitch. Let's try it. Make sure I can't. Yeah, I can't see it. Cut that off. Make sure I can't see it. I can't. It'd be bad for me to see my stitch on the other side. Alright. I can't tell if I'm in frame with this on being like this, which is bothering me a little bit. Alright, so that's what we've got so far. So I'm going to leave this red on, and I think I'm going to grab another needle. I'm going to bring this over here so I don't have to try to pick that up. Alright, so I got red. I'm going to do this red-orange color. I so hate it when that happens. You grab the wrong side and then you try pulling the string and it just makes a hot mess. Hot mess. Darn it, y'all. I used to, whenever I slow stitched in the past, I would take and rewind all of these stinking little things onto a nice little organized thingy. Such terminology. You know those little white things that you wrap threads around. Anyway, I ain't got time to do all that. So I'll just keep fighting with my spools. I also had major disasters where I would get all of those things on the little white spools or so whatever they're called, and I would get them in the container, and then one time of me not closing that lid all the way and then things flying everywhere, they come unraveled, and so I would spend forever wrapping them back around that thing. So I kind of like storing them like this, where I just leave them like this because I've got the number on there and I can see the colors. I don't know, that's just what I like. That's just what I like. What I like. I'm tying a knot. That's why I'm off screen. Sorry. Alright. So let's see what we're going to do. I think I may put a little part of a cloud right here to cover that up where I didn't do it. Alright. So what am I going to do now, y'all? Alright. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come like up in the middle in between these. Like right here. And do my fly stitch all the way around. So that means that this one will start here. And I think I'll go out and join it to that Y of that fly stitch. And if I'm butchering the terminology of what the point of this fly stitch is, that little foot thing, somebody just correct me, because I don't know no better. Alright. Kind of like that. What do y'all think? I don't know. Let's see what it looks when I get all the way around. I'm going to have to definitely go back in here and make a couple stitches because this is bothering me. There goes that OCD-ness kicking in again. Alright. So in between here and up here, up into that one. Get it in there. Am I on screen? Like, I'm so sorry I'm like off in Lululand. I'm so trying to hold it right here. Try. Focus, Kylie, focus. Focus. Alright. I'm still off. Look, I'm gonna have to zoom it back out, y'all. Because I can't see what I'm doing, and it don't help y'all to watch this video if you can't see what I'm doing neither. Okay. So that's what we got working with. So let me zoom out a little bit. Let me do some stitching and some chitty chatty. If you don't like chitty chatty, I'm sorry. I'm going to be chitty chatty. And I'll tell you why. Because I have got video editing software. And I know how to use it. And I have created a lot of videos using the software. But I don't want to sit there all them hours and edit. So, what you see is what you get. That's just how it is, folks. I may add a little photo at the end here, or a little title or something, but I'm not about cutting a bunch of clips. I ain't got time for that. I'm kind of liking the organic feel here we got going on. It's kind of drifting away from the main red there, but I think it's okay. I'm dealing, y'all. Y'all should be proud of me. So I've got this little project going on, which has got me really back interested in sewing again. So I have got a project that I had started before when I was first introduced to slow stitching, and I never finished it, so I'm going to start working on it again. I will say the reason I think I quit doing the slow stitching the first time is because I made a collage of different fabrics and images on the fabrics. And I loved it. Loved it. And I pinned it because I created the whole piece. And I pinned it. I pinned every piece down. And so when I would go to sew, right, this is bothering me. I'm drifting again. It's not looking round now. When I would sew, I would have to fight with them pins. And it drove me nuts. Like, I kept getting stabbed over and over. But since I started doing this, I was watching some videos of other folks sewing their tags. And no, it wasn't tags. It was this lady just showing slow stitching methods. Anyway, she was talking about how in the old days, folks didn't have pins, or they couldn't afford pins, and so they would do a temporary basting stitch to hold all that stuff down with really wide stitches, so that all you had to do whenever you were finished with the project is cut those giant basting things off. But by doing that, it kept you from getting stabbed with all those pins, which was my dilemma. So, I think I'm going to take the time to go back and baste all of those pieces down really quick, long stitches, and then take all them pins out. And I think that I will be more apt to finish it. I'm not about getting stabbed by no straight pins. No. Alright. So that looks good. I do want to go up here and fix that. I'm going to tie this off because I don't want for the back of this to look plumb hideous. And so that thread traveling all that way will drive me nuts. So I'm going to just tie this off really quick. Make sure I can't see that on the other side. Okay, so we got that finished. Look, my son, I told my son I was recording and you can still hear him yelling. He's not yelling for me, by the way, if that's what you're asking. Or thinking, or wondering. He is on his electronics. He is 14 years old. And playing with his friends, because in this COVID world we live in, we gotta get creative, folks. I honestly do not know what I would have done if my kids didn't have their games. Which, we have a different life situation. Anyway, I told you that one of my sons is special needs. He's got an autoimmune condition. And it's a big old long word. You ready for it? You ready for it? Agamaglobulinemia. It's a word about that long. So if you say it like it's supposed to be said, I just broke it down for you in syllables so you could actually see what I said. It is X-linked agamaglobulinemia. Yeah, say that 3 times fast. When he was diagnosed with it, it took me weeks of sitting down, sounding each individual part of the word out to be able to say it. Okay, getting sidetracked. Anyway, so because of his autoimmune condition, my children are homeschooled. Now, we didn't choose to homeschool them because of his illness. I was homeschooled, and so when I had children, I wanted to homeschool them as well. I have absolutely nothing against the public school system, but I feel sorry for teachers because they are with kids all day, and some people are just rude to teachers, and I understand that teachers are great people, but you can't tell me that a teacher who has to divide their time between 30 students can compete with a mom who doesn't have to attend but 2, 3. And not only that, but the fact that they're my children and I can discipline them based on their behavior and nobody else is around to bully, you know what I mean? Like, I just have more control over what happens with their raising. And again, I'm not knocking anybody about any choices at all. That's just why I do what I do. So, I was homeschooled, so I wanted to homeschool them. My son stayed sick his whole life. He is 9 now. And I knew something wasn't right. You know that mother's instinct? I knew. I said something's not right. He's staying sick way too much. I've got 3 kids total. And I said, this is not right. He should not be sick this much. So, we finally ended up, his pediatrician, great people. Great doctor. You could not have asked for better people. Like, so sweet. They would do anything they could to get you in, to call you. This doctor even made house calls to my house on multiple occasions. Great doctor. But all that was happening was antibiotics, prednisone, steroids. And he would get better, but then when the medicine ran out within 2 weeks after he'd completed a dose of medicine, he was sick again. Well, and a cough. The cough was the worst. You know how kids get a croupy cough? Well, he had a croupy cough, and he kept it all the time. All the time. Year round. All the time. He would get, I worked at a church, he would get pink eye, because I was a children's instructor. He would get pink eye, he would get strep throat, he would get sinus infections, ear infections, you name it, all the time, constantly. And so, because he was getting sick, it was in our house, and so we would all end up sick. And finally, the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, of his illness, of me finding out about his illness, was he ended up with a softball size. Softball, y'all. Not baseball. I know the difference. Softball size knot on his leg at the age of 6. Well, he was 5 and a half at this point. At 5 and a half. This thing filled up with all kinds of grossness that I'm not going to talk because I don't want to gross y'all out. But we had to drain this thing like 3 times a day. He was on antibiotics. Still had that cough. Sicker than a dog. And we switched doctors. And I told this doctor, I said, look, I know that I'm new here. And I'm sure you're a great doctor. And I'm not blaming you for any of this. But my kid has been sick ever since he was 6 months old. Something's not right. You're not going to tell me something ain't right, and I don't care what it takes. You're going to figure out what's wrong with him. Well, the main concern at this point was that cough. He would cough, and at night it was so bad. He would be up sick. I mean, literally in the bathroom at the toilet sick. vomiting because he could not quit coughing. And he had been given asthma medications. They didn't help. They didn't help at all. And I was like, okay, if it's asthma, I kept being told, it's asthma, it's asthma, it's asthma. And I was like, if it was asthma, these medicines would be making it better. But it wasn't. So anyway, so I went to this doctor. We switched doctors, and I said, look, here's the deal. They were really great about helping get that treatment for that giant knot on his leg, and all that ended up healing well. It was a MRSA infection. And that got better. And I was like, you're going to find out something. I don't care. I want every test that you can think of to ran. Like, we're done. We wasn't sleeping. He wasn't sleeping. Like, guys, I can't even put into words how bad it was. So, this doctor finally did a pulmonary lung function test in the office. And now this, let me back up and say, because when I tell you that it showed that he had a lung obstruction, he is, I don't know if you've ever had one of them tests done, but you have to blow in this machine and suck in this machine in a specific time period. And if you don't do it right, it can show inaccurate results. Well, this kid has, at this point, he is so ready to be better. He's not a typical 5.5-year-old. Like, they told him how to do this test, and he did this test. Like, they told him they had never seen a kid do this test that well. And the results showed he had a lung obstruction. So they referred us to a major hospital. And we went there, and the pulmonologist, great guy. He listened to all my concerns. I rant and raved about, it's not asthma. I don't care what you tell me. The meds are not working. It's not asthma. I want some kind of procedure done. I want to know what's in his lungs, and I want this done now. So literally from the time we seen him for an initial office visit, I think it was 3 days later, he was having this procedure. Like, it didn't take no time for him to have, I think I call it a bronchioscopy or something like that. And they did a bunch of blood work. Said that his lungs internally, he was bleeding in his lungs because he was so inflamed. So the doctor took a bunch of different swabs inside and sent them off to find out what was in his lungs, what was going on. In the meantime, the doctor calls me about 3 days later and says, oh, they also put him on another dose of antibiotics and steroids at the hospital from that procedure. So the doctor calls us, and he says, look, lady, he says, I have no idea why I ordered this test, but he said, it is such a rare condition, like 1 in so many thousands have it. He said, and I have no idea how it got ordered. But he's like, your son's antibodies are virtually non-existent. So, if you don't know what antibodies are, your immune system is compromised or composed of, you have B cells, which then convert into plasma cells. And they make your IgA, IgE, IgM, IgG. And those particular antibodies, the IgA, IgM, IgE, whatever, help you fight off sicknesses. He had none of those. Like, they were almost non-existent. I don't have the exact numbers, but like, your IgG is supposed to be over 1,200 at his age. His was 120. So your IgG is what fights off bacteria. So that was the reason that my little guy was staying sick all the time. He was constantly having bacterial infections because he didn't have any antibodies to fight off bacteria. So, and also, every single one of his antibodies were virtually non-existent. Like, he didn't have any. And to beat the band, his T cells, your T cells are what fights off viruses. Your antibodies fight off bacteria, but your T cells fight off viruses. Because his body was so depleted of the bacteria fighting cells, he was staying constantly sick. The T cells were having to work overtime to try to fight off anything that he was catching over and over and over again. So basically, how do you understand all that? It was like his immune system had amnesia. So when you get sick, your body says, okay, hey, this is a bad guy. We'll fight him. And the next time you get that same virus, your body says, hey, we've seen this before. We know this is a bad guy. Let's fight him. And so your body develops a memory against that bacteria or that virus or whatever. Well, his body could never do that. So it was like he was constantly catching the same things over and over again. So after the freaking out of all this stuff, because I was like, what if he's got cancer? What if he's got leukemia? What if he's got... Like, my mind was completely in the gutter, as you can imagine. We finally figured out that he was most likely born with it. And then later on, we ended up getting genetic counseling that proved it was a genetic defect. That I nursed my boys. And so once he was no longer being nursed, he wasn't getting my antibodies from me. So that's why he started getting sick at 6 months of age. So, alright, so I went in between there. I think I'm going to, this is getting so wide at this point, I think I'm going to do a fly stitch out this way at this point. Okay. So back to my little story here. Doing the same thing. Sorry, I had to make sure I was doing the right thing here. Am I doing right? I don't like that. I'm going to pull that back out while I can, because I don't like it. I didn't do it. I need to make it touch that. I need to make it touch that other orange one, I think. That just don't look like a consistent look. Okay, so back to my story. If I can get this needle thread in. So once we found all this stuff out, we had to go through insurance approval, documentation of all his illnesses, lab results, proving that he needed treatment in order for the insurance to provide him his IgG, his treatment. So his treatment is he gets infusions. Initially, they were from an IV into the bloodstream to get his levels up to where they were halfway supposed to be. And then we started doing what they call subcutaneous injections. And they are done at home. And he has 2 little needles that go in his body, either his legs or his arms. And he gets human plasma injections, and that plasma contains the antibodies that he needs that he does not produce. So, we have tried numerous kinds of medicines, and it's very expensive for his treatments, but he is a new kid. Like, he is such an inspiration because he dealt with that stuff all his life. He never griped. He never complained. He would cry, of course, you know, when he couldn't quit coughing and he couldn't breathe. And I can't tell you how many thousands of dollars that we spent taking him to the doctor. And they never figured this out. Which, again, it's a rare condition, so. But you know, you look at, I actually pulled all of his medical records after we got the diagnosis, and we were tracing back through how many infections he had had and how long of an amount of time. There was 1 year that we went to the doctor, 16 16 times for either an ear infection, the cough that he couldn't quit, or sinus infection. 16 times in 1 year. Yeah. So, anyway, now that he is getting treatment, the therapy for his condition is only IgG. IgG is what primarily fights bacterial infections. So, your IgA antibodies line the respiratory system, the ears, and all that good stuff, and fight off bacteria. So when you breathe something in, those antibodies are lined inside your nasal cavity, and so they will attack invaders before they actually get into the bloodstream or into the body. Your IgM is antibodies inside of your digestive system. So your throat, your larynx, your esophagus, your stomach, all of those has your IgM in it. And there's no treatment for those. So he only gets treatment for the IgG. But because he's stopped having so many bacterial infections, remember I told you his T cells were almost non-existent. Once he started getting the treatment for his IgG, the T cells, which are the things that fight off viruses, replenished. So, they're still on the lower side. They're still within normal range, but on the lowest side of the normal range. But all his other antibodies, the IgA, IgM, IgE, they are all still way below where they're supposed to be. Like, they're almost non-existent. So, I think, and this is, I may be off a little bit, but I'm just giving you these numbers as an example. It's pretty close to this. I think IgM is supposed to be between, like, 27 or 30, 32 or 36. It's 32 or 36 up into, I think, the 80s or 90s, and his is less than 20. So, he almost has none. So, we don't eat out often, because he was just getting so sick all the time. And then, he was having issues with digestive problems, so he had an colonoscopy and EGD, and they confirmed he did not have any B plasma cells in his esophagus or his stomach or wherever it is they take the biopsies from. I think stomach. So he was still having issues with that, and we discovered he has weird food allergies. Potatoes and tomatoes set him off unbearably. We have to be very careful with milk products because of the increased mucus. And see, I don't like that one. I'm going to go back and undo that one too. So we just have to be careful. And then my other son, we were having issues with his blood sugar and bottoming out at night. He would wake up shaking, and he was about 5 or 6 when this stuff started. My other son, this is not the middle son that has that issue, but my other son, my smallest son, we were having issues with his blood sugar bottoming out, and we went to the doctor. The doctors told us, you know, you need to make sure he eats protein at night. Give him something like peanut butter and some, you know, some bread, so that his levels don't drop. So we were doing that, and he ended up having some blood tests done, and we were admitted to the hospital one time for him to have some tests done for his sugar and all this stuff. Long story short, they never could figure out what was going on with it. So finally, one day, he just acted really weird. Really weird. He said, "Mama, I've got the worst headache ever." And, of course, we had a blood sugar monitor because his blood sugar had been really low. And I was like, for kicks and giggles, you know, that mama's gut, I thought, I'm going to check his blood sugar. And I checked it, and it was over 300. I think it was like 340 something. And we ended up at the emergency room. And by the time they actually got us back there and they checked it, it was back down to close to normal. Because, of course, it takes you 50 years to get in. But Mama Gut Instinct, I woke up one night in the middle of the night. I'm really happy with how that looks. It looks cute. What do y'all think? I know I'm off to the side. I'm sorry. Let me position my camera a little bit better. That doesn't look too bad. I think I want it to kind of be in this position though. Pause from story a minute. Back to slow stitching. I like that. I like it, but I definitely want, I need something up here. What am I going to put up here? Think about it. Think about it. Rah, rah, rah. I don't know. I'm going to think about it in a minute. I think I am going to go ahead and stitch this down, though. See if I've got one here that I don't have to... Yeah, that'll match. So I woke up in the middle of the night and it hit me about food allergies. So I got up that morning really early and I called the allergy doctor. And I was like, look, this is what's going on. These are my suspicions. I want him checked. I will drive, like they've got a ton of offices. I will drive to wherever I have to go to get in today to get him seen. So I ended up driving almost 2 hours away. And they seen him, perform the test. He was allergic, y'all, to all tree nuts. Bad allergic. So, you remember they told me to give him peanut butter to keep his blood sugar up at night? Yeah. It was having an adverse reaction because apparently anaphylaxis can cause blood sugar issues. And I didn't know this, but I do now. So, the night that he had the really bad headache, we didn't know about none of these allergies. He's got nut allergies, dairy, and what else? Oh, it showed eggs because he was so inflamed. Now, the egg issue has resolved, but the milk, no. He has chest pains and stuff really bad with milk and vomiting, and then the nuts are the same way. So, like, we've got EpiPen and stuff. So, the night that he had that really bad headache and we took him to the emergency room and his blood sugar was in the 300s, we had been over at my in-laws and he had a vanilla ice cream cone. He had come home and he had wanted Honey Nut Cheerios. So, he ate Honey Nut Cheerios and with almond milk. So, that night he had dairy, almonds, and then whatever else is in Honey Nut Cheerios. I think there's a risk of peanuts or something, but the almond milk had the almonds in it. So I still am just amazed that all this stuff went on for as long as it did without us realizing that's what it was. So once we took all of those food allergy type things out of his diet, he has not had not one episode of his blood sugar being out of whack. Not one. Not low, not high, not anything. So, it just goes to show you. Random things, my friends. Random things. So, let's see how this is going to work. I think I want to leave that little whoop whoop there. Alright, what am I going to do? I don't like these raw edges like this. What can I do? What can I do? I wonder if I do a blanket stitch around that. Maybe. And maybe whoop some clouds up in the sky. I don't know. How long am I been yakking already? 50 minutes. Holy cow. Alright, so that's my randomness story with my slow stitching. I'm going to finish this up off camera since it's already 50 minutes. I'm going to fill this in with the red like I had said before. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe stitch some clouds up here. We'll see. Anyway, I'll do a picture here at the end of this finished up as to what it looks like. But I can't wait to see if you're doing this challenge, the 52 Handmade challenge. I can't wait to see what it is that you have got. I have been really active looking at everybody's stuff. And I'll look forward to the ones after. I guess I should explain why I'm working backwards. Oh, I did. I started with this one and I went backwards to this one because this was 6 and 5. And now I'm doing 4. And I've still got to stitch Scrappy tag number 3, a heart number 2, and all white for tag number 1. I will try to do a video of me stitching those 2. I think I'm going to do videos for each of these little tags. And I promise I won't ramble on about health problems in all of them. But I don't even know why I ended up telling y'all that story. Oh, COVID. That's what it was. Anyway, so we kind of had a different lifestyle anyway. So we weren't as social as most people. So it wasn't as much of a shock for us as it was for some folks, but it's still, you know, when you tell kids they can't go out and meet their friends or whatever. So my 14-year-old on the video games. It finally come around full circle. It only took me 50 minutes. That's what time of day it's been. Anyway, I think I'm going to do a blanket stitch here. I'm going to cut the camera off and I will come back and bring you guys a picture when I get this all finished up. And I hope you guys will tune in whenever I do some stitching on the other tags. And I think I'm going to start doing recording of the other slow stitch project that I'm finishing. And then I'm really wanting to do one of those sew for the soul books also. So S-O-S-E-W. So. Alright guys, stay tuned in for the next video, and thanks for watching. Hope you guys have a great week.